In a busy corporate office, a hardworking black employee had dedicated nearly his entire career to the company. With just a few weeks left until retirement, he was excited about the next chapter of his life. After years of loyalty and effort, he had earned the respect of many of his coworkers, who admired his work ethic and integrity. Unfortunately, his boss didn't share the same views. This boss, a man with outdated opinions, often displayed subtle signs of racism, which made the workplace feel uncomfortable for the employee and others. Every day, the employee faced small, frustrating moments that added up over time. The boss would frequently overlook his contributions during meetings or dismiss his ideas without a second thought. He would praise younger employees, often implying they were more capable, even when the employee had proven himself time and again. This behavior created a toxic atmosphere, filled with tension. Other employees noticed but felt powerless to speak up, fearing they would face repercussions themselves. The situation reached a breaking point during a critical team meeting. The employee presented an important project he had been working on for months, pouring his heart into it. Instead of acknowledgement, he was met with harsh criticism from his boss, who accused him of not putting in enough effort. Confused and hurt, the employee tried to defend his work, but the boss wouldn't listen. The words flew out of his mouth in anger, and without warning, he fired the employee right then and there. This decision left everyone in shock. The employee couldn't believe it. After all the years he had put into the company, he was being let go just weeks before his retirement. His colleagues were equally stunned, some whispering among themselves, knowing that the firing was unjust. They knew his hard work and dedication, but their admiration meant little in the face of the boss's prejudice. The employee gathered his things, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger, as he left the office for the last time. Once outside, reality hit hard. He felt a sense of betrayal wash over him. What would he do now? Retirement was supposed to be a time of relaxation and enjoyment, not a time filled with uncertainty. The thought of financial instability loomed large, and he worried about how this sudden change would affect his future plans. While he walked to his car, he replayed the moment in his mind, wondering if he could have done anything differently. Back at the office, the atmosphere had shifted. Rumors about the firing spread quickly, and many employees were outraged. They began to talk openly about the unfair treatment of their colleague. Discussions turned into heated debates, and whispers of discontent grew louder. It was clear that the workplace was now filled with tension, as employees started to question their own treatment and the overall culture of the company. As days passed, the employee's story gained traction outside the office. Friends and family encouraged him to speak out, reminding him that he wasn't alone. Their support gave him strength. He realized he could stand up not just for himself, but for others who might face similar discrimination. Together with those who supported him, he began to consider his next steps, knowing that this incident could not go unnoticed. In the quiet moments alone, he reflected on his career. He had always believed in hard work and dedication, values he hoped to pass on to others. Now, he faced a crossroads. Should he fight back against the injustice he experienced? Or should he move on and focus on what's next? Each choice held its own weight, but he knew that something needed to change, not just for himself, but for the future of the workplace he had called home for so long. After the unexpected firing, the former employee found himself in a whirlwind of emotions. It wasn't just about losing his job. It was the way it happened that hurt the most. Friends and family gathered around him, offering comfort and support. They reminded him that he had spent years building a solid reputation, and that one incident didn't define his entire career. Slowly, he started to process what had happened, trying to find a way to turn his pain into something positive. As he navigated through this tough time, he began to hear stories from former colleagues who also felt uncomfortable in the workplace. They had witnessed the unfair treatment and discrimination, but had been too afraid to speak up. Now, with his story out in the open, they felt empowered to share their experiences. He realized that he wasn't alone in this fight. Many others were facing the same struggles. With newfound determination, he decided to take action. He contacted a local advocacy group that focused on workplace discrimination. They had a strong reputation for supporting employees in similar situations, and he knew they could help. After a few meetings with their team, he felt more hopeful. They listened to his story with care and compassion, and together they brainstormed ways to address the injustice he had faced. At the same time, news of his firing spread through the community. Friends began sharing his story on social media, and soon it caught the attention of local news outlets. Articles began to appear, discussing not only his situation, but also the broader issue of discrimination in the workplace. Support poured in from all directions. People left messages of encouragement, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. It became clear that many were ready to stand up against such unfair treatment. As the days went by, the pressure on the company increased. Employees who had remained silent now felt emboldened to voice their concerns, and many began to join the advocacy efforts. They organized meetings to discuss the culture of the workplace, raising awareness about the importance of diversity and inclusion. What started as a personal battle for one person was evolving into a movement that united many. While the former employee was busy with these initiatives, his former boss was feeling the heat as well. The pressure from the media and the growing public outcry forced him to reflect on his actions. In meetings, he noticed his colleagues were no longer willing to support him unconditionally. Many of them were beginning to question his judgment and leadership, realizing that his decisions had led to a toxic work environment. He could feel the shift happening around him, and it filled him with anxiety. In the midst of this chaos, the former employee received a call from the company. His heart raced as he answered, unsure of what to expect. The voice on the other end was from an HR representative, asking if he would consider coming in for a meeting with the boss. It was a surprise request, and he felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Part of him wanted to face his former boss and demand answers, but another part worried about how the meeting might unfold. After some thought, he agreed to meet. It was time to confront the person who had caused him so much pain. He wanted to know why this had happened and if the boss truly understood the impact of his actions. As he prepared for the meeting, he gathered his thoughts, determined to express himself clearly and assertively. On the day of the meeting, he arrived at the office, feeling a wave of emotions. Walking through the familiar hallways brought back memories, both good and bad. As he approached the boss's office, he felt a surge of determination. This was not just about him anymore. It was about everyone who had been treated unfairly. He was ready to stand up and demand change, not only for himself, but for all those who had faced discrimination in the workplace. As the former employee walked into the office for the meeting, his heart raced. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was a chance to speak up for himself and others who had faced similar treatment. The waiting area was quiet, but he could feel the weight of the moment hanging in the air. He glanced around, recognizing the familiar faces of coworkers who had supported him. They were watching closely, rooting for him as he prepared to confront the man who had caused him so much pain. When he finally entered the boss's office, he was met with a tense atmosphere. The boss sat behind a large desk, looking more anxious than he had ever seen him before. There was an awkward silence as they both took a moment to gather their thoughts. Finally, the boss spoke, trying to sound calm, but clearly struggling. He offered a weak apology for the firing, stating that it was a decision made in haste. But the former employee could sense that the apology was not enough. It felt insincere. "I don't understand why you felt the need to fire me," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I worked hard for this company for years, and to be let go just weeks before retirement feels wrong. It's more than just losing my job. It's about respect and recognition for the contributions I've made." His words hung in the air, filled with emotion and truth. The boss shifted in his seat, looking uncomfortable. "I see your point," he said, his voice lacking conviction. "But I thought the company needed to make some changes. I didn't mean to hurt you." Hearing those words only fueled the former employee's determination. He wasn't going to let the boss brush this off so easily. "It's not just about me," he pressed. "There are many people in this office who feel undervalued and disrespected. Your actions have consequences that extend far beyond one person. It's about creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and included." The former employee's passion was evident as he spoke. He wanted the boss to understand the bigger picture and the importance of treating everyone fairly. For a moment, the boss looked taken aback. The realization that his behavior had impacted others started to dawn on him. The former employee watched as he processed the weight of those words, and for the first time, he saw a hint of vulnerability in his boss's eyes. The atmosphere shifted slightly, and there was a glimmer of hope that perhaps change was possible. After a pause, the boss sighed. "I've been wrong, and I see that now. I've let my biases cloud my judgment." He leaned forward, looking more earnest. "I want to make this right, but I need your help. If you're willing, I'd like you to come back and work with me on improving the company culture. We need to address these issues together." The former employee felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, he was hesitant to return to a place where he had been treated unfairly. On the other hand, this could be an opportunity to create real change. He thought about all the people who had stood by him, who had shared their own stories of discrimination. Could he help ensure they wouldn't have to go through the same struggles he did? After a moment of reflection, he replied, "If I come back, it can't just be about me. We need to implement real changes that ensure everyone is treated with respect and dignity. I want to be part of that solution." The boss nodded, showing a willingness to listen and learn. They spent the next hour discussing ideas on how to improve the workplace environment, focusing on diversity training and creating safe spaces for employees to voice their concerns. It felt like the start of a new chapter, one that could lead to healing and growth. As the meeting came to an end, the former employee left the office with a mix of hope and caution. It wouldn't be easy, and there were many challenges ahead. But he felt empowered knowing that he could use his experience to make a difference. This was just the beginning of a journey toward change, not only for himself, but for everyone who worked there. He had the chance to turn a painful situation into something meaningful, and that thought filled him with determination. After the meeting, the former employee felt a rush of emotions. He left the office with a sense of purpose, ready to take on this new challenge. He had agreed to return, but he knew that it wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was filled with uncertainty, and he understood that changing the company's culture would take time and effort. Nevertheless, he felt hopeful for the first time in a long while. Back at home, he shared the news with his family and friends. They listened intently, and their faces lit up with encouragement. "This is a great opportunity," one friend exclaimed. "You can help so many people by making the workplace better for everyone." Hearing their support made him realize how important this moment was. He wasn't just going back to his old job. He was stepping into a role that could bring about real change. The next few days were filled with preparation. He met with the advocacy group he had connected with earlier. They brainstormed ideas on how to approach the workplace issues that had been ignored for so long. Together, they created a plan for a series of workshops aimed at educating employees about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The goal was to create an environment where everyone felt safe to express themselves and where their contributions were valued. As he returned to the office, he noticed a different energy in the air. Many of his former colleagues welcomed him back with open arms, expressing relief and excitement about the changes ahead. "We're glad you're here," one coworker said. "You always stood up for what was right. We need your voice." Their encouragement motivated him even more. He felt a strong sense of responsibility to help those who had been silenced for too long. The first workshop was set to take place the following week, and he spent hours preparing. He wanted to make sure that the sessions would be engaging and impactful. He invited guest speakers who had experienced workplace discrimination firsthand, allowing them to share their stories. Their experiences would help others understand the importance of empathy and respect. On the day of the workshop, nerves bubbled in his stomach. As he entered the conference room, he was greeted by a mix of familiar and new faces. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. He welcomed everyone and introduced the speakers, reminding everyone that this was a safe space for open discussion. The speakers shared their personal stories, detailing the challenges they faced and how they overcame them. The former employee watched as the room filled with emotions. Some people nodded in understanding, while others looked visibly moved. He could see that the stories were resonating with his colleagues, breaking down barriers and opening minds. After the presentations, he facilitated a discussion. He encouraged everyone to share their thoughts and feelings, and gradually, people began to open up. Coworkers shared their own experiences, both positive and negative, and it became clear that many had felt unheard and disrespected. The atmosphere shifted as people realized they were not alone in their struggles. By the end of the workshop, there was a palpable sense of connection among the attendees. People exchanged ideas about how to foster a more inclusive environment, and several expressed a desire to continue these discussions in the future. The former employee felt a wave of relief wash over him. This was just the beginning, but he could see that the seeds of change were being planted. In the days that followed, he continued to hold workshops and meetings, each one building on the last. The company began to implement policies focused on diversity and inclusion. They formed a committee made up of employees from various backgrounds to ensure that everyone had a voice in shaping the workplace culture. It felt like a community was being formed, one that celebrated differences and promoted understanding. The former employee had transformed from a victim of injustice into a champion for change. He realized that while the journey was long and filled with challenges, he was not alone. With each step forward, he felt more empowered and grateful for the support of those around him. Together, they were working to create a workplace where everyone felt valued and respected, and that vision kept him motivated as he continued to fight for a better future. As the weeks turned into months, the changes within the workplace began to take shape. The former employee felt a sense of pride watching his colleagues come together. The workshops had sparked conversations that were long overdue. Employees were now more willing to share their thoughts and feelings, and the office was starting to feel like a place where everyone had a voice. One day, as he was walking through the office, he noticed a group of employees gathered around the coffee machine. They were laughing and chatting, discussing ideas about how to make their work environment even better. It was a simple moment, but it filled him with hope. Just a few months ago, many of these same people had felt hesitant to speak up. Now, they were engaging with one another openly and joyfully. It was clear that the culture was shifting. Inspired by this progress, the former employee organized a team-building event. He wanted to create an opportunity for employees to bond outside of their usual work responsibilities. The event would include fun activities, games, and a chance for everyone to share their experiences in a relaxed setting. The goal was to strengthen relationships and foster understanding among coworkers. On the day of the event, the atmosphere was buzzing with excitement. Employees arrived with smiles and a sense of anticipation. The former employee welcomed everyone, encouraging them to let loose and have fun. As the day progressed, he saw coworkers laughing, collaborating, and building connections that had previously been missing. The games encouraged teamwork, and soon people were cheering each other on, showing support and camaraderie. During a break, he gathered everyone for a group discussion. He asked them to reflect on the changes they had experienced in the workplace. One employee spoke up, sharing how much more comfortable she felt expressing her ideas since the workshops began. Another chimed in, noting that he had learned to appreciate different perspectives, which had improved teamwork. Hearing these stories filled the former employee with joy. He realized that the changes weren't just policy updates. They were real, meaningful transformations in people's attitudes and behaviors. The conversations flowed easily, and he could see how the connections being formed were genuine. This was the community he had envisioned when he decided to take a stand against discrimination. As the months went by, the former employee also continued to meet regularly with the boss. They worked together to ensure that the new policies were being implemented effectively. The boss had begun to change his approach to leadership, making a conscious effort to be more inclusive and aware of his biases. Although it wasn't always easy, he was committed to learning and growing. One day, the boss called a meeting with the entire staff to discuss the progress they had made. As he spoke, he acknowledged the mistakes he had made in the past and emphasized the importance of creating a workplace where everyone felt valued. The former employee watched as his colleagues nodded in agreement, many of them smiling with approval. It was a pivotal moment, one that showed how far they had all come together. In the following months, the company began to attract attention for its efforts in promoting diversity and inclusion. Other businesses started to reach out, wanting to learn from their experience. The former employee was invited to speak at conferences and share his journey. Each time he spoke, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that his story had the power to inspire others facing similar challenges. However, he remained grounded. He often reminded himself that this was just the beginning. The fight against discrimination was ongoing, and there was still much work to be done. He felt a responsibility to continue advocating for those who might not have a voice. As the year came to a close, the former employee reflected on the changes that had taken place. The office that once felt cold and unwelcoming had transformed into a warm, inclusive environment. People were engaging, supporting one another, and celebrating their differences. He felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing he had played a part in creating a workplace where everyone could thrive. Looking ahead, he was excited about the future. He knew that with continued effort and commitment, they could keep building on the progress they had made. Together, they were not just changing a workplace, they were changing lives. And that was something truly worth fighting for. As the new year began, the workplace continued to evolve in exciting ways. The former employee felt a renewed sense of energy and purpose. The initiatives they had started were not just surviving, they were thriving. Employees were more engaged than ever, and there was a buzz of creativity in the air. Meetings that used to feel tense and uncomfortable now flowed with ideas and collaboration. Everyone was eager to contribute, and it showed in the quality of their work. One day, the former employee was invited to a company-wide meeting to share updates on the diversity initiatives. He was nervous, but also excited to see how much progress had been made. When he stepped up to speak, he looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom had joined the journey with him. Their smiles and nods of encouragement gave him the confidence he needed. As he spoke, he highlighted the positive changes they had experienced. He shared stories of how employees were now more willing to speak up during meetings, sharing their ideas and concerns without fear. He talked about the successful workshops that had empowered many to understand the importance of inclusivity. The room was filled with applause as he finished his speech, and he felt a surge of pride. It was a reminder that they were all part of something bigger than themselves. After the meeting, he received a flood of messages from coworkers expressing their gratitude. They thanked him for his leadership and for giving them a voice. It was heartwarming to see how many people felt inspired by the changes they were creating together. In that moment, he realized the power of collective action and how important it was to stand together. However, he knew that not everyone was fully on board with the changes. Some employees remained skeptical or resistant to the new culture they were trying to build. The former employee recognized that change could be difficult, especially for those who were accustomed to the old ways of doing things. Instead of becoming discouraged, he saw this as an opportunity to engage those who were still hesitant. He organized smaller, informal gatherings to discuss the new initiatives and gather feedback. These sessions allowed employees to express their concerns openly in a safe environment. He listened carefully to their thoughts, trying to understand their perspectives. Many of them shared stories about their own experiences with discrimination or exclusion, which deepened his understanding of the challenges they faced. Through these conversations, he realized that addressing skepticism required patience and empathy. He encouraged his colleagues to see the value in diversity and inclusion, emphasizing how different perspectives could lead to better problem solving and innovation. Gradually, some of the most resistant employees began to soften their stances, opening up to the idea of change. One afternoon during a lunch break, a small group of employees approached him. They expressed their appreciation for the initiatives and shared how they had personally benefited from them. One employee mentioned that she now felt comfortable bringing her ideas to the table, something she had never done before. Another shared how the workshops had opened his eyes to the experiences of others, making him more compassionate. Hearing these stories reinforced his belief in the work they were doing. It showed him that change was possible, and it could start with just a few individuals willing to share their truths. The conversations he had initiated were planting seeds of understanding that would continue to grow. As the year progressed, the company began to see measurable changes in its culture. Employee satisfaction surveys reflected a marked improvement in morale and engagement. The former employee was thrilled to see that people felt happier at work and that they appreciated the company's efforts to foster a more inclusive environment. In a particularly memorable moment, the company held its first annual diversity and inclusion celebration. The event was filled with food, music, and storytelling, showcasing the diverse backgrounds of the employees. Everyone came together to share their cultures and traditions, creating a vibrant atmosphere of acceptance and joy. It was a beautiful reminder of what they had achieved together. As he looked around at the smiling faces of his colleagues, the former employee felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had not been easy, but every challenge had been worth it. He understood that while they had made significant progress, there was still work to be done. Change was an ongoing process, and he was ready to continue the fight for a workplace where everyone felt seen, heard, and valued. As the spring season arrived, the former employee noticed a fresh sense of enthusiasm throughout the workplace. The diversity and inclusion initiatives had become ingrained in the company culture, and people were starting to take pride in their differences. Employees were not only celebrating their unique backgrounds, but also actively engaging in discussions about how they could continue to improve the work environment. One afternoon, he was approached by a group of younger employees who had recently joined the company. They expressed their desire to contribute to the ongoing efforts in promoting diversity. This was exciting news, as it showed that the younger generation was eager to be involved in shaping the future of the workplace. The former employee encouraged them to share their ideas and suggested forming a youth committee focused on innovation and inclusivity. The group met regularly to brainstorm and implement new initiatives. They came up with creative ideas for team-building activities that celebrated different cultures and backgrounds. One suggestion was to host a monthly cultural day, where employees could share their traditions through food, music, and storytelling. This idea resonated with everyone, and soon, the company was buzzing with excitement as the first cultural day approached. When the day finally arrived, the atmosphere was electric. Employees decorated the break room with colorful banners and flags representing various countries. Tables were set up with delicious dishes from different cultures, and employees shared stories about the significance of each dish. The former employee watched with joy as people mingled, tasted new foods, and learned from one another. Laughter filled the air as colleagues exchanged recipes and cooking tips. During the event, employees were encouraged to participate in activities that highlighted different traditions. There were dance performances, poetry readings, and even a talent show where people showcased their unique skills. The diversity of talents on display amazed everyone. The former employee felt a sense of warmth and community enveloping the room, as people from different backgrounds came together to celebrate their shared humanity. The success of Cultural Day reinforced the idea that inclusivity could be fun and engaging. Employees who had previously been quiet started to speak up more in meetings, sharing their insights and contributing ideas. The workplace felt more dynamic, and the collaboration among teams grew stronger. The former employee knew that these small changes were building blocks for a more inclusive culture. As the months rolled on, the former employee continued to engage with the leadership team. He emphasized the importance of maintaining the momentum they had built and encouraged them to invest in further training for managers on how to support their teams. He suggested hosting regular feedback sessions, where employees could share their thoughts on the workplace culture and any changes they wanted to see. The leadership team agreed, recognizing that the feedback of employees was crucial for ongoing improvement. They started conducting quarterly surveys to gauge employee satisfaction and gather suggestions. The former employee took this opportunity to remind everyone that their voices mattered and that they should feel empowered to share their thoughts. With each survey, the company received valuable insights. Employees appreciated the open-door policy that allowed them to communicate with management without fear. Some shared experiences about how they had felt excluded in the past, and the leadership took these stories seriously. They acknowledged the need for continuous education on diversity issues and committed to offering ongoing training sessions for all staff members. One day, during a company-wide meeting, the CEO stood up to share the results of the latest survey. He highlighted the significant improvements in employee satisfaction and expressed gratitude for the collective efforts of the team. The former employee felt a swell of pride as he listened to the CEO talk about how the changes had positively impacted the workplace. It was clear that their hard work was paying off. The CEO also announced that they would be launching a mentorship program to further support diversity and inclusion within the company. The goal was to connect younger employees with experienced mentors who could provide guidance and support. This initiative was welcomed with enthusiasm, and many employees signed up to participate. As summer approached, the energy in the workplace remained high. The initiatives they had implemented continued to foster a sense of community and belonging among employees. The former employee was excited to see how these changes were positively affecting not just the culture, but also the overall morale of the team. Each day brought new opportunities for collaboration and connection, and he felt proud to be part of such a supportive environment. One sunny afternoon, the company organized an outdoor picnic to celebrate the progress they had made over the past year. The former employee helped plan the event, making sure it included activities that encouraged interaction among coworkers. The picnic featured games, a barbecue, and even a space for employees to showcase their talents, such as music or art. It was a chance for everyone to relax and enjoy each other's company outside the office setting. On the day of the picnic, the atmosphere was lively. Employees arrived with blankets, food, and a spirit of excitement. Families were invited, and children played in the grass, adding to the joyful ambience. The former employee wandered through the crowd, greeting coworkers and their families. He felt a sense of fulfillment as he watched people engage in conversations and laugh together. It was heartening to see the relationships that had blossomed over the past year. As the event progressed, he gathered everyone for some fun team-building activities. They played games that encouraged teamwork and communication, fostering a sense of unity. Laughter echoed through the park as teams competed in friendly challenges. The former employees saw how these activities brought people together in new ways, breaking down barriers and strengthening bonds. During the picnic, the former employee took a moment to reflect on how much had changed since he first returned to the company. He recalled the challenges he faced when he initially walked back into the office. Now, he felt embraced by a community that valued each individual's contributions. He knew that the journey wasn't over, but the progress they had made was worth celebrating. Later in the day, the CEO took the stage to address the crowd. He expressed his gratitude for everyone's hard work and dedication. He emphasized the importance of maintaining the momentum they had built together. The former employee listened intently as the CEO shared inspiring stories about employees who had taken initiative to lead their own projects, furthering the company's commitment to inclusivity and diversity. The CEO also announced a new initiative, a volunteer program that encouraged employees to give back to the community. He explained that the program would allow employees to spend paid time volunteering for causes they were passionate about. This idea was met with enthusiastic applause, as many employees were eager to make a difference outside of work. The former employee felt a surge of pride as he recognized that their workplace was not only committed to internal growth, but also to positively impacting the larger community. After the speeches, the employees enjoyed a delicious meal together. The former employee sat with a diverse group of coworkers, discussing their experiences and sharing stories about their backgrounds. Conversations flowed easily, filled with laughter and camaraderie. He noticed that people who once hesitated to speak up were now engaging openly. It was a testament to the progress they had made as a team. As the sun began to set, the picnic turned into a festive atmosphere filled with music and dancing. The former employee joined in, dancing and laughing alongside his colleagues. In that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. The worries and fears that once clouded his mind had transformed into hope and joy. He knew that the changes they had worked hard for were not just policies on paper. They were being lived out in every interaction and every shared moment. The picnic wrapped up with a group photo, capturing the smiles and laughter of everyone present. The former employee looked around at the faces of his coworkers, many of whom had become friends. He felt grateful for the journey they had shared and the connections they had built. As the day came to a close, he knew that the path ahead would still have its challenges. However, he was confident that they had created a strong foundation for a workplace that valued diversity and inclusion. With the support of his colleagues, he was excited to continue this journey, knowing they could tackle anything together. The former employee left the picnic feeling inspired and motivated. He was ready to face the next chapter of their story, eager to see what they could accomplish as a united team. Together, they had turned their struggles into strength, and he looked forward to the possibilities that lay ahead. As the summer days passed, the positive energy from the picnic continued to resonate throughout the workplace. The former employee noticed how the spirit of collaboration had taken root, making the office feel more vibrant and alive. It was heartening to see colleagues interacting more and forming friendships across different departments. The cultural initiatives had truly made a lasting impact. One day, the former employee was invited to a brainstorming session with the leadership team. They wanted to discuss the next steps for their diversity and inclusion efforts. Excited about the opportunity, he prepared himself to share ideas and insights from his experiences over the past year. During the meeting, he highlighted the success of the cultural days and the recent picnic, suggesting that they could host more regular events to maintain the momentum. As he spoke, he could see the enthusiasm in the room. The leaders were eager to support new ideas that would keep the conversation around diversity alive. They discussed potential themes for future events and how they could incorporate employee feedback to ensure everyone felt included in the planning process. The former employee felt a sense of pride, knowing that his input was valued and that he was part of shaping the future of the company. After the meeting, the leadership team decided to establish a monthly diversity spotlight feature in the company newsletter. This would highlight different employees, sharing their stories and backgrounds. The aim was to educate others about the rich tapestry of experiences within the organization. The former employee was thrilled about this initiative. It would give a platform to those who might not usually share their stories and foster a deeper understanding among coworkers. As the first edition of the newsletter was prepared, employees were excited to see their colleagues in the spotlight. The former employee helped gather stories and worked with the communications team to ensure that the feature was engaging and respectful. He felt a renewed sense of purpose as he watched the newsletter take shape, knowing it would strengthen connections among the staff. With each new edition of the newsletter, employees began to look forward to reading about their colleagues. The stories were diverse, showcasing different cultures, experiences, and talents. The former employee noticed how these stories sparked conversations among employees. People began to ask questions, learn about one another, and celebrate the uniqueness that each person brought to the table. It was a small but significant change that made the workplace feel even more connected. Meanwhile, the volunteer program launched successfully. Employees had the chance to participate in various community service activities, from helping at local shelters to organizing environmental cleanup days. The former employee joined a group that focused on mentoring youth in the community, sharing skills and knowledge to help young people succeed. It was a rewarding experience that allowed him to give back while further connecting with his coworkers. As more employees participated in volunteering, they returned to the office with stories of their experiences. These shared moments of service helped strengthen the bonds between colleagues. The former employee witnessed firsthand how these connections made the workplace more supportive and understanding. Employees who had once felt isolated began to feel more connected to their teams, creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere. As fall approached, the company decided to organize a large community event to showcase their ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion. The former employee was excited to help plan this event, which would invite families from the surrounding neighborhoods to join in the festivities. It was an opportunity to celebrate their achievements while also giving back to the community. The planning process brought together employees from different departments, all working collaboratively to create a meaningful event. They brainstormed ideas for activities, food, and entertainment that would reflect the diversity of the company and the community. The former employee felt a sense of camaraderie as he watched everyone come together, fueled by a shared vision of inclusivity. On the day of the event, the park was transformed into a lively festival filled with music, food, and laughter. Families and community members arrived, eager to join in the celebration. The former employee was overjoyed to see coworkers mingling with guests, sharing their stories and experiences. The event became a beautiful representation of the values they had worked so hard to instill in the workplace.